coming up.
I think that's the hardest part. Not knowing why someone would want to do this.
For Vault Studios, I'm Will Johnson. You're listening to The Daily Crime. It's been just over 3 years since a woman was gunned down and killed in her driveway outside of Houston, Texas. Liz Barraza was just 29 years old when she was murdered.
How did they know that she would be standing on that driveway alone at 6:50 in the morning on Friday, January 25th? That to me is like, really, I think that might be the key. Clearly, they were there early in the morning, hours before she was out of bed, driving by to see what truck Sergio was driving that day so they could know when he had left the subdivision and she was by herself.
3 years later, her family and investigators are still searching for her killer.
It's a daily retelling of her story. It's lots of outreach.
I don't know how long it'll take, but you know what? For as long as it takes, we're going to be out there. And we're going to be fighting for it because somebody does know something.
We know that rewards and anonymity work. But I also know that as a parent and as somebody who has my own loved ones in my family, that the Nellies are never going to give up. They will get justice for their daughter. I want to give hope to every victim out there. Keep fighting. Sometimes it takes years, but we eventually get justice.
We've all been there, feeling unheard, having the same arguments over and over, or just not knowing how to move forward. Talkspace gives you unlimited access to a licensed therapist so you can clear up the confusion and focus on what matters most, being the best person and partner you can be. There's no guide to follow to achieve a perfect relationship, but taking the time to have open and honest communication can be extremely beneficial. With the help of a licensed therapist from Talkspace, you can work on your relationship with your partner at your side to help get to the root of your problems instead of ignoring them. Connect virtually with your Talkspace therapist through secure messaging and live video portals on a schedule that works for you. So skip the awkward waiting rooms and join Talkspace today to start the journey towards happier and healthier relationships. Just visit Talkspace.com and get $100 off your first month when you use promo code C13 at signup. That's $100 off at Talkspace.com with promo code C13.
I'm joined by Grace White, reporter at KHOU in Houston, Texas. Grace, thanks for being here once again.
Happy to be with you, Will.
Grace, we actually covered this case on our weekly show, True Crime Chronicles, about a year ago, but here we are now just over 3 years since Liz Barraza was shot down and killed in her driveway. And let's remind our listeners what we know about what happened. I mean, she was setting up for a garage sale, essentially, in the early morning hours, right?
This is a murder that's really a complete mystery, and it's hard to believe we're 3 years from it and it's still unsolved. You're right, Will. She was setting up a garage sale in her driveway just before 7 o'clock on a Friday morning and is essentially gunned down right in front of her home. And the killer caught on surveillance video and just takes off.
Liz Barraza was, she was planning a trip, and actually the garage sale was to raise money for, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a surprise trip with her husband, right?
It wasn't a surprise. They were planning the trip together, but it was certainly something they were looking forward to, celebrating their 5th anniversary. They're both huge Star Wars and Harry Potter fans, and they were planning a trip to Orlando to celebrate that anniversary. And Liz was doing this garage sale. It was sort of a last-minute garage sale to get some extra spending money for the trip. It wasn't a garage sale that was heavily advertised. It was something that she kind of just was putting together at the last minute to get some extra spending money for Orlando. And her husband had just left for work when this happened.
And Grace, you mentioned this surveillance video. It's incredibly disturbing to see this. I mean, you actually see the killer come up and fire shots at Liz Barraza.
It is disturbing, Will. The killer appears to be in some sort of disguise, and investigators have cautioned us they don't know if this suspect is a man or a woman, but they've released these videos. They've put them out there online, shared them with media partners like us, because they want people to look at these videos and to call in tips. And here we are 3 years later, still asking for tips, now with an increased reward, hoping someone will come forward.
Right, and we're going to talk about that reward. It has been increased, and the family's still out there talking about this case and trying to keep it out in front of the public. Before we do that, the other part of this surveillance video that morning was that, and maybe it's different video, you can enlighten us, but there was additional video of the truck sort of casing the neighborhood, right, before this happened.
There is. The suspect's truck they've released is a 4-door Nissan Frontier with a specific Pro 4X sticker. So that's a specific detail they've been able to pick up from this surveillance video. And you're right, Will, they have video of the truck in the neighborhood before and after the murder. So that is significant. And they're hoping that because it passed so many times, someone noticed something, someone will remember something about this particular Nissan Frontier truck and call it in.
And then I believe her family has also brought up the fact that someone must have known that she would be out in the early morning hours setting up for this garage sale.
Exactly. We've interviewed them several times. And you know, this is such a tragedy. But when you look at the video, when you look at everything we know and things we don't know about this case, the family in their heart believes this was targeted. They don't know why. Investigators have no motive that they've released. But when you look at the video, it just seems like this was a deliberate act.
Despite what you might believe, your weight is not your fault, even if you've been trying to lose weight for years. Meet Calibrate, the science-backed program that proves sustainable weight loss does not come from yo-yo dieting, calorie counting, or willpower. It's all about biology. The Calibrate program works differently by addressing metabolic factors with FDA-approved doctor-prescribed medications and one-on-one face-to-face coaching for food, exercise, sleep, and emotional health. Real support, not chatbots. We partner with you to help you take control of your weight and your health with tiny tweaks that lead to real results. In fact, our earliest Calibrate members lost 14% of their body weight on average. Fight biology with biology. Get $50 off Calibrate's 1-year metabolic reset when you use code SAVE50 at joincalibrate.com. Visit joincalibrate.com to see if you're eligible and use code SAVE50.
911, what is your emergency?
Frantic calls to 911, crime scenes, and lives violently ended.
Police officers arrived to find that she had been stabbed well over 20 times.
Secrets and lies, and the search for suspects.
Your wife, she's being arrested and charged with murder.
Trials and verdicts.
The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
I'm Brian Ross. Join me for Killer Cases, a new podcast from Vault Studios and the Law and Crime Network.
I can only imagine how frustrating it is for her family that they've got video of the killer, they've got video of a truck, and then they just don't have any suspects at this point. What do we know about the investigation 3 years on now? Has anything else come to light?
Well, we know investigators are saying this is an active case. They do not define it as a cold case. So it's been 3 years, but they told us they're still actively working leads. We're in touch with the detectives. We're in touch with the family. And actually, detectives told us they recently went on a trip to Miami, Florida to interview a person of interest. So just one example of the links they've gone to solve Elizabeth Barraza's murder. They're still working it.
Grace, let's talk about Liz Barraza a little bit. We know she was a big Star Wars fan. That's brought up frequently when we hear about her, but that was a big part of her life.
It was. She was a member of the 501st Legion, a group that actually dresses up in Star Wars costumes and visits children in the hospitals. That's what her and her husband did together, and that was a huge part of her life. Her parents describe her as kind and silly and just a huge heart for helping others. And this is just so heartbreaking for her family, for her friends, for the people that knew Liz. And they are just hoping here 3 years now later that someone will come forward and give them closure and answer the biggest question: why?
And a big element of perhaps solving this could be that reward. As you mentioned, it was recently upped in value.
Her parents have been working diligently since the new year to increase the reward. The reward in this case was already significant. It was $20,000, but they, in their hearts, really wanted to do something this year, 3 years later, to get their daughter's case more attention. And they thought that an increased reward going up to $50,000, which certainly is rare. We don't see cases get this large of a reward that often. So they, on their own, did some fundraising, and they worked with Crime Stoppers hand in hand to announce this released reward, hoping that the money will get someone's attention.
Today, Crime Stoppers is announcing an increased reward of up to $50,000. That's right, you heard me, $50,000.
3 years later, $50,000. Parents who are out there talking about this, you would hope that someone would come forward who knows something. Has her husband said much in recent years or months?
He has. We've interviewed him before for stories that we've covered, but he was also standing with her parents the day this reward was announced, this increased reward. And he said again at the podium at this press conference that this was the hardest day of his life. He said losing his wife was devastating, and he asked everyone to work together to solve this case.
3 years ago today was the hardest day of my life. Had to be at the hospital and see my wife no longer be able to be with me. I was told that she wasn't going to make it, and all I could do was cry in agony at why someone would do this. I didn't know what to do. All I could do was hurt. Unfortunately, today we are still trying to figure that out, why someone would do this. And so we seek the help of the public still by raising this reward up with Crime Stoppers to get help from somebody out there who knows something, who can still benefit from this money. It's just still really hard to know that this is still happening, and I just hope this helps, and I hope someone steps up, because we need somebody to do the right thing.
Listeners can certainly contact Crime Stoppers, right, in Texas, or the police in Houston?
Absolutely. Houston Crime Stoppers, 713-222-TIPS.
Grace White, reporter at KHOU in Houston, Texas, a regular contributor on The Daily Crime. Thanks again for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Thanks for listening to The Daily Crime. Be sure to check out our weekly show, True Crime Chronicles, available wherever you listen to podcasts. For Vault Studios, I'm Will Johnson.